Eventually I built this forge. It's 17.5 inches long and it's 8 inches inside diameter. And that's a little bit of a big area. Okay, I have these pieces of channel on here I use for the fire brick as doors. This is the back, the other side's the front. That's a stand that I picked up. You know, got the hole for the burner over here on the side. Now, it's a propane tank that I cut the ends off of after making sure that it was safe by, you know, removing the valve. Before I removed the valve, I filled it up with water a couple of times, emptied it out, made sure that it was clean, no residue. Eventually, what I did was I purchased some Insulwool blanketing for 2600 degrees, 1 inch thick, and I put that around the inside. And then I used a concrete form for doing poles and whatnot at Home Depot. I bought it, put it in there, and I put the refractory cement rated for 3000 degrees around in it. Used a ruler to kind of stuff it in there, packed it in. Now when I eventually let it sit for 2 days. Now eventually when I pulled the inside piece out, I had a couple of areas I had to redo, which is all around here. I had to pack some more refractory cement in around. Not sure why it's staining like that, but whatever. It worked really well. The problem was that it worked so well, the burner I had couldn't heat it up. I could get it warm for a small portion. I used my original forge burner, the small guy that I have, and it wouldn't heat up very much. So I put my foundry burner in it, and that got everything hot. But the problem was that whenever I'd place like a piece of metal right there on the bottom, it would only get it barely red. So I started using the fire brick doors. I would block off the back with a piece of Insulwool right against the back and made sure that it was fine. And I put like 1 clay brick door there, and then I'd fill up the inside with a few more clay bricks, and those are fire bricks, so they're rated for 2600 degrees. But the problem was that once I filled up the space, I was actually able to start working in orange temperatures. But even then, I couldn't get up to forge welding temperatures. It was just too big of an area to heat with that burner. Now, if I had set it up instead as a foundry, I probably could have done something like that, had it going in a different manner, used a different burner perhaps. But the problem was that with a little 5-gallon tank that I have for propane, it was consuming far too much fuel to get anything done, and I wasn't getting much out of it. My tank would start to freeze before I could really do anything. I'd get about halfway through a project and I'd have to stop and let my tank warm up because the propane gas was burning off so quick, or rather being used so quick, that it was causing the tank to freeze, and so I wasn't able to do anything for too long. It's a great idea. Problem is, I did it wrong. There are other methods you can use. One gentleman was telling me about a line burner and a bunch of other stuff for propane down the road, and of course not anywhere near as big of a setup. Now my current forge that I use is actually coal, and it's sitting right here. We'll go over this one a little bit more in depth later. Now that big forge, I kind of had the idea of go big or go home. The thing was that I was thinking to myself, the soup can forges are a little too small. I need to be able to put larger pieces of material in them and heat it up thoroughly. When I got to making tomahawks, or was making a tomahawk with the soup can forge, eventually there was a point where I couldn't put it in there anymore. The blade was too wide to fit. Didn't want to have that problem anymore. So I saved up a bit of money and I purchased the Insulwool and the refractory cement and everything else like that. And I purchased a couple of propane tanks off my neighbor. They were old, unused, and empty. And I got the stand from Harbor Freight for like 35 bucks. The metal on the front for the doors, that was from my local scrapyard. Bought the material straight from them. It wasn't scrap, it was actual material. And local co-op store had the fire brick. It was great. It was like everything came together. But The problem was, as I've said, I wasn't able to heat it up correctly. It became a problem. And when I was putting those fire break on the inside, after I eventually figured I needed to take up some space inside there to actually hold the heat a little bit better for forging purposes, the bricks lasted like twice. It was glowing red hot. I mean, the walls of the forge were glowing, the brick was glowing, everything was glowing, and it would take about an hour to cool down. If I was lucky, it would take an hour. I'm not even sure that I insulated it well enough. As crazy as that may seem, because once it got going, you couldn't even touch the metal on the outside. You couldn't touch the actual surrounding propane tank. It was too hot. It was a great idea. I did it wrong. There's nothing, I mean, people take propane tanks like that, and from what I was hearing, they cut them in half. Not just like nip the ends off, but they cut them in half, and they will put the refractory cement and everything in there and put a bottom down on it for more stable or non-mobile units. And then they will put line burners. I'm going to check into it, whatnot, but on the inside, and that is a more complete style heating for heat treatment and whatnot. Also used for forging, but nonetheless, my point is that a much more complete heat. And I didn't do enough research on it. I just saw a couple of videos and I was like, oh man, I'm going to build one of them. It'll be great. Oh yeah, you know, it'll work like a charm. And it did a little bit. I was able to heat up quite a few pieces and hammer with it, but again, the problem was such a small propane tank using so much fuel, it wasn't viable. And the other problem I was having is that because of its size, the smallest of gusts was causing the flame to go back up the burner tube and ignite the propane leaking out of that quick connect fitting on more than one occasion. One day I think I had to hit the ball valve somewhere about 8 times, and that's being conservative on how many times I hit the ball valve, just to make sure that everything was okay. I don't recommend doing it. Use the proper fittings, proper safety equipment as well. That's actually the point that kind of drove me to go with coal or charcoal. Charcoal works great too, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking charcoal. I was having so many environmental issues that I needed something a lot more stable. It's harder for me to get coal here. I have to go to Spokane to get it, and it's $35 a bag. And a bag will last me about a month, but then again, I only get to forge 2 to 3 times a week. If I'm lucky, 2 to 3 times a week. It being the fact that it's winter now, it's more like 1. So, yeah. But nonetheless, the thing is that propane, there's a corner on the gas station on the corner. I could go down there, get it for $2 a gallon. But the coal and even charcoal work better for me at this current moment working outdoors. Now, once I get an actual shop or something like that, I do plan on building a proper propane forge for inside there, and it'll be great. And I'll get the right size tank and everything else like that. I will invest in the proper fittings. I know what I'm looking at now. See, these videos aren't for me. This is not, necessarily fun, don't get me wrong. But I look at it like this. I've learned what I need to do. And this is information I wish someone would have had when I started out. Everybody's like, oh no, it's great. Oh no, it's great. Oh no, it's awesome. Yes. It can be great. Yes, it can be awesome. Was I doing it exactly to spec? No. Was I trying as best I could? Yes. Did it work out awesome? No. There's the problem. So, if you're going to build one, cool. Get the right materials. Do it indoors. All that stuff. Do as best you can. But it didn't work out for me at this stage. Maybe down the road. Anyway, that's enough for that. Take it easy and just think about different things.